Hello, my friends. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and today I'd like to talk to you about video games, if that's all right. Specifically, I'd like to talk to you about my most anticipated video games of 2022. It is, after all, a fresh new year, and we have a whole crop of new games to look forward to in the coming months, many of which are pretty exciting. I'm certainly enthused about some of the games we've got coming up this year. I'm going to do this in a top 10 list style. I'll count down from 10 to 1. And then I have a few honorable mentions that I'll throw in at the end as well. If you don't want it to be spoiled for you, I recommend not looking at the navigation bar down below or in the video description. But if you want to jump ahead, maybe you're feeling impatient or something, you want to see what my number one most anticipated game of the year is, you can do that down in the navigation bar and with the timestamps in the video description. This is going to be a kind of rambly, soft-spoken, informal sort of video. Not quite sure how long, but probably of decent length. So sit back, relax, get comfy, and buckle up for a long one here. I myself am already pretty comfy because I am wearing this fine hoodie from this video's fine sponsor, Into the AM, as you may know, are purveyors of elevated everyday apparel. You might know them for their graphic t-shirts, of which I wear quite a few here on the videos, on my streams. I love them. They look great. They feel great. They fit great. They're easy to care for. But Into the AM has more than just those tees. And sometimes you want something a little more subdued, something a little more simple, something really comfy. And that is where their Basic Fleece series comes in. This here is one of their basic hoodies, and they sent one over for me to try out, and I have to say, it lives up to my expectations. It is really well made. It is really comfortable. It is really nicely fitted. It's got this kind of stretchy cotton polyester spandex blend thing going on, which means that it fits just right, and it's super, super comfy to just lounge around in, or to work in, or to go jogging in, or whatever. Speaking of which, it's not just hoodies that Into the AM does. They also do joggers, which I'm wearing right now. You can't see, but I am. They're also very comfy. And shorts as well. So they've got you covered there. And all of them are made of the same awesome high quality material to the level of quality that you would expect from Into the AM. So I've got something for you if you would like. I have a link down in the video description that you can click through on, which will save you 10% on all of Into the AM's store and products. Whether it's these hoodies, whether it's the joggers I got on down below, whether it's the graphic tees, which I love very much. And of course, they're always getting in brand new designs for their graphic tees. So even if you've been over there to check it out before, head on over, check it out again. They got all kinds of fantastic designs. Some ones that I really love, like the jellyfish design that you guys maybe saw before. The Tree of Life design is a perennial favorite, as well as all kinds of exciting new ones. So if you do so with said link, you'll be supporting the channel as well, which of course I appreciate very much. And a big thank you to those of you who have already done that and purchased through that link. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you enjoyed saving 10% on some high quality, super comfy, great looking clothing from Into the AM. With that said, it's time to dive into my top 10 most anticipated games of 2022. Starting with number 10 on my list, Horizon Forbidden West. This is, of course, the hotly anticipated sequel to 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn. It is a third-person action-adventure, open-world RPG kind of thing where you play as Aloy, who is a human in the far future in the post-apocalypse, living with a kind of tribal level of technology, but in a world full of mechanical dinosaurs and things like that. So, the original game came out on PlayStation back in 2017. This follow-up is coming to PS4 and PS5 on February 18th of this year, which is actually why it's in my number 10 slot here, because as awesome as the sequel looks, and it does look amazing, the graphics look mind-blowingly good. As good as it looks, I don't actually own a PS4 or a PS5, and so I'm not going to be able to play it at launch. Now, the original game did eventually come to PC. I think it took about 3 years for that to happen. I'm hoping that Horizon Forbidden West is going to come to PC quicker than that. I'm hoping maybe a year or less. We'll see, though. Sony has been pretty proactive about putting a lot of their sort of prestige first-party exclusives on the PC over the last little while. So I'm really hoping that they'll get Forbidden West onto PC in a timely manner, but they haven't even announced that it will yet. I'm pretty confident, though. I'm pretty confident that it will show up on PC sooner or later. It's just a question of when, pretty much. So it would be higher on my list if I felt that there was a better chance that I would actually play it in 2022. But given that I'm not sure, it takes the number 10 spot. But it does look really good. Those graphics, so good. And the gameplay looks very intense. Pretty incredible evolution of what we saw in Zero Dawn. So, looking forward to that. Coming in at number 9, I have a very charming looking little indie game. It's called Tunic, and it is an isometric Zelda-like action-adventure game where you play as a cute little fox, and it really has a lot of heart in the way it's presented in the graphics and such, and the gameplay looks really clean and fun as well. This game has been known about for quite a while. I think it was first shown back in E3 2018, maybe even 2017. I could be wrong about that, but it made one of my, maybe more than one of my top games of E3 lists over the years. It feels like it's been in development forever, but it is finally coming out this year on March 16th, and it's coming to Xbox, PC, and Mac, apparently. I don't know if there's a PlayStation or Switch release planned, but anyway, it looks really cute, really charming, and I'm really looking forward to finally checking out Tunic. At number 8, our 8th spot on the list, is a game called Stray. developed by a studio called Blue 12 Studio. I think this is their first game, actually. Stray is a game where you play as a cat in a cyberpunk world inhabited by robots. It looks from the gameplay trailers, at least, like there are no people. It's all just robots. And as a cat in this world, you are climbing around this cyberpunk city and using your cat abilities, like, you know, jumping and going through small spaces and stuff to explore this city and fight off some kind of baddies. I'm not quite clear on what that situation is, but it's another really charming looking game. I love cats, and it just has a really neat looking presentation, and it's a fairly novel concept. So that one's coming out on PS4 and 5 and PC. It has no specific release date, but they've said early 2022. So whatever that means. Number 7 is Baldur's Gate 3. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 is obviously the third major installment in the storied Baldur's Gate series, the Dungeons and Dragons series of video games. And it's been a long time since we've had a proper Baldur's Gate sequel. Baldur's Gate 2 came out in, 99? Something like that? I should probably know, but a long time ago. Baldur's Gate 3 is actually, it's available in early access, and it's being developed by Larian, who did the Divinity series. So they have quite the RPG pedigree, and I know that it has been purchasable in early access for quite some time now, but I've held off on buying it because it's the kind of game that I'm probably only really going to play once. I don't know, I guess it depends, but big sprawling RPGs like this tend to be quite a time investment. And so if I'm going to put in the time, and it's sort of this heavily story-driven thing, I want to be able to experience it in its final form, its sort of definitive form. So I'm waiting for full release, basically. I've been holding off on it and waiting for full release to pick it up. Larian has not committed to a specific release date, but I believe 2022 is the release window. So it's possible it slips to 2023, but I think it's pretty unlikely, just from how long it's been in early access, what we've seen, what they've said about it, that we will see a full release this year. And that's coming to PC and Mac. At number 6 on my list, I have Total War Warhammer 3. Now, this is kind of a funny one because I am a fan of both Warhammer and a fan of the Total War games, but I'm kind of a lapsed fan of both. Like, I used to play Warhammer Fantasy probably 10 or 15 years ago. I had a Chaos Army. I used to play with my friends. And I used to play a lot of Total War games. I played the crap out of Rome Total War back in the day. But I probably, I kind of stopped playing Total War games, around Rome 2 Total War. So quite a long time ago now. And I've really not gotten into them since. I played a little bit of that, Sparta one. Came out last year, I think. But anyway, I've not played either Total War Warhammer 1 or 2, which is weird because, again, they are right up my alley. They are conversions of things that I historically have enjoyed a lot. But I honestly think that Creative Assembly's like business model for these games sort of turned me off. Like, you know, they're basically, you pay full price for the game and then there's a ton of DLC that they kind of nickel and dime you for. This is not uncommon. There's lots of other games that do this, but with Total War Warhammer 1, I thought I would just wait until they had put out all the DLC and I'd get like a big bundle, sort of the definitive edition of it all together, which never really seemed to happen. Maybe it has happened since then, but the thing is that then Total War Warhammer 2 came along, and as I understand it, it basically contained everything from Warhammer 1 and then some. So at that point I was like, well, I guess I'll just wait for a definitive edition of Total War Warhammer 2 with all the DLC and stuff bundled in. And I don't think that's happened yet either. And now here we are looking at Total War Warhammer 3 coming out very soon, February 17th. And once again, it's going to include both the maps and all the races from Total War Warhammer 1 and 2. So this kind of feels like the giant culmination of the series, you know, kind of all of it coming together finally in one place, presumably with the best graphics of the series and you know, the most quality of life features. You know, they've had a lot of time now to massage this Total War Warhammer formula. So on one hand, it feels silly to put this so high on my top 10 games of the year list when I haven't actually played the series at all. But I think this might be where I finally say, okay, it's time. I'm going to dive into it and enjoy this stuff. Also, I must say, it really helps that it's coming to Game Pass, which I'm now signed up for, thanks to Halo Infinite. That finally got me to sign up for old Daddy Phil's subscription service. So, yeah, Warhammer 3 coming to Game Pass means I have no reason to not try it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to maybe finally engaging with the Total War Warhammer series. At number 5, we're moving pretty quickly through this list, actually, a little faster than I expected. At number 5, we've got Elden Ring. Elden Ring. And this is another one where it seems a little weird for me to put this on my list because this is the next game from Software. They have the Dark Souls, the Demon Souls before that, Bloodborne, Sekiro, all these. And it's a little weird for me to put on my list because, once again, I haven't played the Dark Souls games. I have not played Bloodborne. I have not played Sekiro. But I put this on my list in a way similar to what I did for Warhammer, which is a sort of aspirational entry on my list, because I think Elden Ring might finally be the game that gets me into the From Software world of games, I guess. Like, by all rights, I should love Dark Souls. I should really be into what From Software is doing, because I like me an action RPG. I love dark medieval fantasy. I love games with extensive and obscure lore and these sorts of things. But I think what kept me away from the Dark Souls series was their reputation for being so punishingly hard. And I know that they kind of garnered a reputation that was maybe even more notorious than deserved. But like, in some ways, and no offense to those of you who are big fans of those games, but in some ways, I think it was the fan base of those games that kind of turned me off, because there is this always sort of like really edgy, like, well, you gotta just get good and be hardcore kind of attitude about it. And that's not everyone, of course, but that's sort of the pop culture like flavor of those games, I guess, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I'm making any sense, but the point is, I think the games on their own terms are probably really good, but I always stayed away from them because I found them to be a bit intimidating, and because I felt that if I was going to tackle them, I would need a lot of time to invest to get good and to really properly bite into and digest the setting and the lore and the gameplay and all that stuff. And so I kept saying, you know, I'll check them out. I will, but just not right now. I just don't have the time right now. I just don't have the time right now. And here we are, like, whatever, 10 years later, and I still haven't played them. So all of that is to say that I think Elden Ring might finally be the point where the series becomes accessible enough to me and interesting enough to me that I have to check it out. I've watched quite a bit of gameplay, and it looks really, really cool. Like, I love the open world, the way it looks, the expansiveness of it. I love the creature designs that I've seen. I love the combat that I've seen so far. It all looks really interesting to me. And I think this is where I'm going to finally give a From Software game a fair shake. So that is why Elden Ring is aspirationally on my list of my top 10 most anticipated 2022 games, in the number 5 position. And I really hope this is the one where it finally clicks for me and I can really sink my teeth into Elden Ring. At number 4 on my list, I have Pokémon Legends Arceus. Pokémon Legends Arceus. Now, this is the next game from Game Freak, who are the original developers of the Pokemon games and the ones who have put out the core Pokemon games since the series began. Now, regular viewers of the channel might know that in recent years, I've gotten pretty burnt out on the core series Pokemon games. They just really haven't done it for me. Not that I think they're badly done. Like Sword and Shield were cool, and Sun and Moon were cool, but I feel like it just is starting to feel so stale. There's just not enough innovation from one generation to the next for me personally. I mean, I've been playing these games for literally, over 20 years now, right? So getting close to 25 years. And they just have been feeling too samey and too hand-holdy and very oversimplified in some ways. Like, the complexity of the overworld and the zones and such actually feels like it's regressing. And like, one of my favorite things about the Pokemon games is actually exploring those worlds, feeling like I'm going on an adventure rather than just running from A to B to get the next piece of story or whatever. So all that is to say that I'm really, really hopeful that Pokemon Legends Arceus is a breath of fresh air, and it looks like it could be. It looks like it could be. If you've not been following the game, it is an open-ish world kind of game where Pokemon roam freely around this beautiful beautiful. This natural landscape, which is the game is set in the Sinnoh region, so the Generation 4 region, which is shared, of course, by the recent Generation 4 remakes. But it's back in, I guess, the 1800s, roughly. I don't know, just judging by looking at the sort of level of technology in the trailers and such, you know, a century ago or more, probably. And so the exploration, the layout of the world, the combat is quite different. You know, like Pokemon roam around and they'll attack your player character, and you'll have to like dodge out of the way and stuff. And when you want to catch a Pokemon, you have to physically aim the Pokeball at them and throw it. This is the kind of stuff that I've been wanting to see the series try for years and years and years. Like, I imagined something like this, you know, 15 years ago, thinking the series would eventually get there. But the core game series still hasn't, of course. It's remained very, very traditional in its design, with a few exceptions. I mean, there are like the Pokemon that wander about in the overworld now and such in the core series. But anyway, the point is that I think Pokemon Legends Arceus stands a chance of being very refreshing. But I also feel like everything I've seen of it looks very half-baked still. It just looks kind of ugly, truth be told. Like, it's really grimy looking, and you can tell that, like, they're going for a Breath of the Wild type aesthetic to their world, but they really don't get there. Like, it's a very ugly looking mimic of Breath of the Wild. And that's too bad, because the Pokemon world is so potentially so rich and beautiful and full of these amazing creatures and amazing places. Again, to me, the series has always been about going on an adventure. And so I would like a game that really fulfills that fantasy. And yeah, just looking at this game in action, it just looks janky. Like, it looks bad, truth be told. And so that saddens me. But maybe it won't be so bad in action, you know, once we have our hands on it. But I can't help but feel like if they can't make a trailer look good, then the actual game's going to be really ugly. And the world, I should say, it's not just about the aesthetics, but it looks empty. Like, it looks like very open, empty kind of landscapes. So I guess all of that is to say, I really want Pokemon Legends Arceus to be good, because I would love for Game Freak to have something that feels inspired and vital and fresh again. And I would honestly love to have my joy for Pokemon rekindled. I'm waiting for it. And I hope that Pokemon Legends Arceus is going to be it. But I'm not confident that it's going to be it. But I choose to be optimistic. And I hope that it's going to be the one that finally feels fresh and revitalizes my love for Pokemon. So that is coming out on Nintendo Switch very soon, January 28th, so just a few weeks away. We will see whether it is the next great Pokemon thing or if it is hot garbage. It feels like it came very fast, like they announced it, I think, last year, and I feel like we haven't really seen that much of it, and yet we're like right here on release, so it makes me worry that there's not that much there. But again, maybe there is. Maybe my worries are unfounded. We'll have to see. Speaking of The Legend of Zelda, The Breath of the Wild, in my number 3 spot, I have Breath of the Wild 2, which is a working title as far as we know. It doesn't have an official title yet. It also doesn't have a firm release date yet, but I do believe Nintendo has confirmed somewhat recently that they're still targeting a 2022 release date for that game. I think most people are pretty excited about this game. Most people who enjoyed the first one anyway, because Breath of the Wild was a pretty revolutionary game. Even if you don't agree with all of their design decisions in that game, it was a landmark title that influenced many others that came after it over the last number of years. And I think many people would call it an instant classic. Certainly, I think it is a very special game. And it's not that often that a Zelda game gets a direct sequel, but that is what Breath of the Wild 2 appears to be. So it'll be interesting to see where they take the game, how they push the envelope and continue to hopefully evolve some of those revolutionary concepts that they introduced in Breath of the Wild 2, and also where they take the story and the lore. I am very much here for it. What we've seen so far looks intriguing, to say the least, and given the bar that the last game set, my expectations are pretty high. But of course, that can be a problem too. If the world has these incredibly high expectations of Nintendo, it can be very hard to follow up a game that's considered a modern classic like Breath of the Wild. So I hope we see the game in 2022, and I hope that it's good. I'm certainly excited to see what they do with it. At number 2 on my list, I have a game that most of you probably don't expect, and that is technically not a brand new game, but it's an expansion for an old game. So the game that most of you probably don't have on your top 10 most anticipated game lists, but allow me to make the case for Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. So Guild Wars 2 is a game that I've played ever since it launched back in 2012. It is an MMORPG, so an online, massively multiplayer RPG. This game is really near and dear to me. I played the original Guild Wars since it launched as well back in the day in 2005. And Guild Wars 2 has really evolved over the years. It is now approaching, its 10th anniversary here. But it is still going really strong. It is remarkably healthy. It has had 2 expansions over the years, and both added a lot of really neat stuff to the game. End of Dragons is Guild Wars 2's 3rd expansion, and it will take us to the continent of Cantha, which is basically Guild Wars Asia. And that setting was featured in Guild Wars Factions, which was the 2nd expansion for the original game. And it came out in 2006, I think. So all that is to say that I have a lot of nostalgia for this setting, and I'm really excited to see what they do with End of Dragons and the Canthan continent in Guild Wars 2. Now, let's just back up for a second here. So, if you have never played Guild Wars 2 before, it is an action-based MMORPG with a huge world to explore, a really quite lengthy and involved personal story for your character, as well as PvP game modes, sort of a large-scale PvP game mode as well, called World versus World, where there are like sieges and defenses of keeps and things like that. But the core game is a lot of fun to just explore the world. The world of Guild Wars 2 is massive. It is beautiful and rich, and is one of my favorite games to just go explore in, solo or with a friend. It's also great because it really, for the most part, respects the player's time. And as someone who doesn't always have a whole lot of time to invest in things, in games these days, I really appreciate that I can play it for a while, put it down, come back to it months later, and still feel relevant. Like I haven't lost a lot of power or anything, and just pick up where I left off. The game has a lot of what they call horizontal progression, so expanding your options and capabilities, but not necessarily escalating your power in terms of the numbers. The game has one of the best mount systems of any game that I've ever played. There's quite a few different mounts. They're all really characterful, really fun to use, and they all have specific things that they're best at, like the Springer, which is great for jumping quite large distances, the Skimmer, which is for going over or under the water, the Roller Beetle, which is great for traversing smooth terrain at high speeds, the Raptor, which can jump horizontally long distances, and of course flying mounts, the Griffin, the Sky Scale. They all have their own unique abilities, and they're all lots of fun to use. I know I'm kind of rambling about Guild Wars 2 here, but it's a lot of fun. I really love playing it, and I think a lot of people are missing out because they just don't know about it, or they think that it's a dead game, which is very much not. It is. There's a huge population of people playing it. It is very healthy, and more people coming in anticipation of this new expansion as well. So I cannot recommend Guild Wars 2 enough. The base game, like the core game that launched originally back in 2012, is free to play. You can play through all that content, all those maps, for absolutely free. So I do encourage you to check it out. And we do have a guild as well. That is the final thing I should let you know. We have a guild in Guild Wars 2 for this ASMR nerd community, I guess you could say, run by some of our wonderful community members. We get together every so often. We do guild events. It's a great way to hang out with some like-minded folks and just chill and enjoy a fun online world. So if you would like to join the Tavern of Tingles, that is our guild, you can check out the Guild Wars channel on our Discord, and you are more than welcome to join us there. So, Guild Wars 2, End of Dragons, the third expansion for Guild Wars 2, my number 2 most anticipated game of 2022. And finally, in our number 1 position, my most anticipated game of 2022, you might be able to guess what it is if you've been listening through and you haven't heard me mention this game. Somewhat predictably, it is Starfield. Starfield is the next great epic RPG from Bethesda Game Studios, they of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series. And it is a sci-fi RPG set in outer space where you fly a spaceship around to various alien planets. And of course, I'm a big Bethesda Games fan. I've loved pretty much all their output since Morrowind. You know, even Fallout 76 had its upsides. I enjoyed the map of Fallout 76. There were other elements of its design that I'm less crazy about, but it ended up in an okay place, and I honestly thought the map was pretty cool. But not everyone agrees with me on that, and there's certainly quite a few folks who feel that Bethesda has lost their touch over the years, that, you know, maybe they peaked with Skyrim. Some people would argue they peaked even earlier than that, but, you know, and that everything after that has been a slow sort of downhill slide, and they pissed off a lot of people with Fallout 76, and I understand that perspective as well. So, you know, I think a lot of people are framing Starfield as Bethesda's sort of make or break title, to show whether they still got it or whether they just have become, you know, too, I guess, big company greedy, you know, if they've sort of lost their spark. It's been a long time since we got a proper single-player epic RPG from Bethesda. Fallout 4 was, what, 2015? Was it 2015? 2016. I think it was late 2015, wasn't it? I'd have to double check. But, yeah, so it's been a while. And moreover, this is Bethesda's first game since they were acquired by Microsoft. So people are watching Starfield very closely to see whether Bethesda still has it, and whether it seems like Microsoft is exercising some level of control over the creative output, I guess, of Bethesda. Of course, there's a whole technology side of things as well. I mean, the creation engine, which is what Bethesda uses in their games, is very old now and notoriously buggy and creaky and outdated. And they are continuing to use it with Starfield, although they are calling it now Creation Engine 2 because they claim they've made so many upgrades and stuff under the hood. So Starfield, I think, is going to be very closely scrutinized by many people from many different angles. And there are going to be some people looking to tear it down no matter what, I think. And also, because it is this sort of next great game from this legendary RPG developer, I think there's another camp who will be impossible to satisfy because their expectations will be so high as well. So in some ways, maybe it can't win, you know, but I have confidence that Starfield is, if nothing else, going to be interesting. I think that just from what I've seen, interviews from, you know, Todd Howard and other Bethesda developers there seems to be a lot of passion for Starfield because this is Bethesda's first new IP since they acquired Fallout, and their first endemic new IP, I guess, that they created themselves since the Elder Scrolls. So I think there's a lot of passion and enthusiasm for this totally new universe and lore and setting that they've created. And I know for Todd Howard, at least, and some of the other core team there, this is the game that they have wanted to create for almost 20 years now. Like the roots of Starfield go back that far. So for all those reasons, I think it's going to be an absolutely pivotal game for Bethesda Game Studios. And I personally think it's going to be pretty cool. I have confidence that it's going to be pretty neat. And that is why it is my number one most anticipated game of 2022. Oh, and it's coming out in November, so we've got a while to wait. Most of these other games are pretty front-loaded in the year. Lots of February releases. One in March, one in January. A couple that are unspecified when they're going to come out in the year. But Starfield is the only one that we know for sure is coming out late in the year, November 11th. So I'm going to be waiting with bated breath until November 11th of this year. So we finished the top 10 list, counted down my top 10 most anticipated games of 2022. But I do have a handful of other games, maybe more than a handful. 7 of them. That, for one reason or another, I didn't think quite fit on my top 10 list, but I still wanted to mention here. One of them is Forspoken, a game called Forspoken, which is being developed by a company called Luminous Productions. Not sure if they've developed anything else before, but I think there are some Final Fantasy 15 veteran developers on that team. And also some of the writers they got on this game are very interesting. One of them is Gary Whitta, who was the writer for Rogue One, the Star Wars story, which was one of my favorite Star Wars films in recent years. But Forspoken looks to be a third-person action adventure where you play a girl from New York who gets transported to a fantasy realm full of magic. One of the big things about it that people seem to pick up on is there's a very cool traversal. Lots of parkour-like traversal, but also lots of very badass magical abilities. The graphics look amazing. The action looks really cool. It's supposed to come out May 24th of this year on PS5 and PC. The big reason that it didn't make my list is because I don't know much else about it beyond that. And it's, a brand new property. And so, I just don't know what to expect out of it, I guess. But I do think that it looks cool from what I've seen so far. Another one on my list here of honorable mentions is Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. Now, this is being developed by Massive Entertainment, who did Tom Clancy's The Division. And so it's being published by Ubisoft. And this is based in the world of Avatar, the cinematic Avatar, the blue people, from the, 2006 movie or something? 7? I don't know. That movie, which is getting a sequel this year, apparently, December of this year. James Cameron's Avatar. I enjoyed that film quite a bit at the time. I just really thought it was a cool world. And yeah, the story was a little bit, cliche, but I thought that it was really beautiful and a lot of fun. And this game looks to be that. It looks like this amazing, huge, open world action adventure, I guess, another one of those. But it looks beautiful, like really, really pretty. And I think that could be a really fun world to immerse oneself in. Now, the reason it didn't make my top 10 list is because even though they've said they're targeting 2022, I don't think we've heard anything about it since E3 or whatever E3 period of 2021. And so I would be very surprised if we saw it make a 2022 release, but it's possible. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Technically, that's what they are targeting officially. So looks cool, but we'll see. Also on my list here, Hogwarts Legacy. This is a Harry Potter game, another sort of open world action adventure RPG set at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the 1800s, I believe. And this is another one that I've had my eye on for a while. This is maybe the Harry Potter game that Harry Potter fans have always wanted. I'm not the biggest Potterhead in the world, but it is, a big part of my childhood and growing up, and it is something that I certainly have enjoyed over the years. I think if they do a good job of this, it could be really, really rad. The imagination runs wild with all the cool kinds of stuff they could do, but who knows if they're going to nail it. It's being developed by Avalanche Software, not Avalanche Studios, so not the guys who did Just Cause, but rather Avalanche Software, the developers who did Disney Infinity. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do with that property. And it's coming out sometime this year, apparently, but they've not committed to a firm release date yet. A few other games here. The Lord of the Rings Gollum. This is a quirky looking little game where you play as Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. As far as I can tell, it has no movie license, so it's got the book license. And it looks to be a stealth game where you are sneaking around, as Gollum and doing Gollum things, I guess. It's being developed by Daedalic, so I'm expecting kind of a quirky stealth action game, hopefully with heart. But I really don't know. This game could either be awful or it could be a charming kind of sleeper hit. We'll see, right? I'm hoping it's good. I like The Lord of the Rings, of course, and I like stealth games, so it's possible that it's something that just really strikes the right chord for me, but it's really hard to know. And I believe that's supposed to be coming out sometime in 2022. Again, no firm release date there. Gloomwood is another game on my honorable mentions list here. This is an indie game developed by a couple of people by the names of Dylan Rogers and David Szymanski. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but it is what looks to be basically a love letter to the Thief games, which some of you know are favorites of mine. Stealth games, of course. And Gloomwood looks to be a first-person stealth game that is really trying to evoke the original Thief and Thief 2 as well. It's got kind of this low poly, late 90s look to it. Very dark, very steampunk kind of medieval look. And I'm here for it. I'm really curious to know more about that. There is a demo out, which I keep meaning to download and try out actually, but I have not done so yet. But I might go do that now that I've been reminded that there is a demo for it. And that is, I don't think they've said again that it's coming out this year for sure, but the Steam page for it says release date soon. So that leads me to believe it's probably coming out this year. Two more games on the list here. One of them is called Terra Nil. Terra Nil. This game is really unique looking. It is billed as a reverse city builder where basically you're cleaning up after civilization has passed. You're using technology to rewild a barren planet. So you are trying to bring back the robust natural ecosystems and go from a wasteland to a thriving, vivid ecosystem. And when you're done, when you've achieved that goal, you pack up all your, restoration equipment, and they all fly away, and you're left with a beautiful, pristine, natural, restored environment. And it's got this beautiful kind of pixel arty aesthetic. And I just really love the concept. I feel like we need some of that these days, because I don't know, I just feel like it feels hopeful in a way. It feels like a breath of fresh air in a time where I just feel like, not to get on my environmental high horse, but, with the looming specter of, not even looming specter anymore, the reality, the here and now of climate change and all its dire effects, and just progressive extinction of species, on an unprecedented scale. And I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but this game feels very hopeful and therapeutic and earnest in a way that I really like. And the concept of a reverse city builder is pretty cool too. So again, I don't think it has a specific release date, but 2022 appears to be what they're targeting. And finally, last of my honorable mentions goes to God of War. Not the new one, not Ragnarok, but the 2018 God of War. Because, once again, that came out on PS4 back in 2018. I don't have a PS4. It's finally coming to PC this year, but next week, basically, January 14th, or this week, as of the time of this video being published. So, I know many of you have probably played it. It's old news for you. That's why I didn't put it on my list, because it's technically not a 2022 game, but it is first coming to PC 2022, and it's a game that I've always thought looked super, super cool. So I'm really looking forward to finally being able to experience that God of War from a few years back. Okay, my friends, I believe that brings me to the end of my rambly discussion of my most anticipated games of 2022. I would love to know what you think of this list and this collection of honorable mentions as well. Are some of your games on this list? Do you agree with my picks? Am I crazy with my picks? Let me know what your top games of this year are as well. I'd love to read those from you down in the comments. Always nice to see what other people are looking forward to, and maybe discover some games that should be on my radar that aren't. Of course, there's a heck of a lot of games coming out all the time, and sometimes it's hard to be aware of everything. Maybe even some stuff that I do know about that I forgot to put on this list. But this was, when I sat down earlier today to put it together, this is what I came up with. So please feel free to leave a comment down below. I would love to hear from you. And of course, a big thank you once again to this video sponsor, these guys, Into the AM, who made this this awesome hoodie that I'm really vibing with here. It is super comfy. It is super cozy, and so are their joggers, which I've got on here. I do encourage you to check them out. If you've never been to their website, they've got those awesome graphic tees that I really love, as well as these cozy basic fleece that are super duper comfy. And if you use that link down in the video description and pinned at the top of the comments, you can save yourself 10% off your entire purchase, and a portion of your purchase comes back to support the channel, which of course I'm very thankful for if you choose to do that. So check them out, Into the AM. Great sponsors, great sponsors of this channel, and manufacturers, purveyors of high quality, elevated, everyday apparel. Okay, thanks again for watching, my friends. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed this ramble chat today about video games. I hope, of course, that you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time. Bye for now.